and I can hear her now that she's still doing a great job for Israel. And so thank you, Ila, and thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor for me to be here with you tonight. When I was preparing my I don't know if you call it a speech. When I prepared the conversation, it was about 1 month or 2 months ago when Ila asked me to join you in this important evening. So when I prepared it for, I think 2 weeks ago, I didn't know about the plan of Hamas. So during my speech or my conversation, I will tell you about myself and what I did during my life. But of course, if you want to ask about the operation and what we had in the last 10 days, so feel free to ask, and I'm here from you for everything that you want to know. Before I want to tell you about my life, because I heard Dila tell you that she told you my CV, but I want to let you know what I've been through. I think from when I was born in Israel. So I was born in Ra'anana and grew up in Netanya. My mom and dad were divorced when I was very young, so we moved with my mother to Netanya, and my father get married and have two children, and had two children, stays in Ra'anana. I was raised by my mom. She was a single mom. She still do, and she raised me and my sister. Um, I was living in a very poor neighborhood in Netanya. I don't know if to tell you that it was poor. It was very challenging one, because most of my friends that were born with me, they didn't go in the way that I did. And I think part of it is because I had a very strong mother who really raised us and encouraged us to succeed in life, to finish our bagrut, finish high school, and go to the army and do all this process or that you're going through in the Israel society, so we can succeed, me and my sister. But most of
But
my
Carmen's,
friends,
I sent Carmen the link. So she phones me, she says to me, did you send me a link? So I said, yeah, well, Hela's on Zoom. So she goes,
you hear that someone is talking?
Sorry, Merav, carry on. Everybody is supposedly muted, looks muted, but carry on. Merav, you are muted. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, I heard someone talking. Anyway, most of them didn't finish high school or join the army or went to the academia, but most of them remain in the same neighborhood and had no plans for the future. But as I told you, I had very strong mother, and she decided that we will go in a very different way, me and my sister. So she raised us as a single mom, and despite all the financial difficulties, she did not give up and invest all her, I think, money, or I think all her program on me and my sister. Just want to tell you that although it was, I think, the 80s in Israel, um, my mother finished high school when she were 14 years old. I mean, I think probably Ela and me, we are in the same age, and I think that probably her mother probably went to high school or went to the army. I assume that, but my mother finished her school, and when she was 14. So I think in the back of her mind, she always wanted to give us the opportunity that she didn't get when she was a young. And although she was very brilliant student, but her mother told her that it's time to work, so she finished high school and went to help her mother. But she completely insists that me and my sister will go to high school, of course, and finish her studies, and went to the army. I went to the army when I was 18. For me to join the IDF, it's not only the duty that we have by law, and you probably know it very well. It's a high value, and it was a great honor for me to serve my country. So you probably, when you think about the IDF, you said, okay, every woman and men in Israel, when they become 18, they have to go to the army. This is what the army has. But when there's a lot of people like me in Israel, that when they see the army and they see the IDF, they see it as a great honor to serve their country. And this is what I felt when I raised raised to the IDF. I served very far from home in a Golani unit. I don't know if you know Golani unit. It's a combat unit. I was served as an education officer. I was a lieutenant. And then instead of 2 years service, I chose to donate to my country, as I told you. And I was for 5 years in the army, and I volunteer because when you finish the 2 years that you have to do it, you volunteer for another 3 years. I think that in Golani or in the army, I finally saw the Israel society and the gap between poor and rich people. I think that our army is completely a melting pot of Israel society. Um, it's not just going to the army and serve the people who look different than you. I think that you truly understand the problems, and of course also the good things that we have in Israel society. And I saw in my serving in the army all the shade of Israel society come together, and in the army they learn to live together and serve together. And I'm putting a spotlight on that period in my life, because when I was born and raised in Netanya, I didn't really actually saw Israel society. And when they putting you in the army and you meet people from all over Israel, this is the first time that you see Israel society. And I think, although even when I was very young, I was very activist in my neighborhood, I think this is the first time that I actually believe that. I think that this is actually my vision, or what I want to do in Israel society. So of course I have the privilege to serve my country, and of course to shape for the first time my social vision. And being responsible education being responsible to the education of my soldiers, I saw many soldiers who didn't have the opportunity to study and to finish their high school, and they went to the army with a very big gap in their education, and of course it influenced them later. So after I complete my military service, and of course after a long trip in Australia, as you probably know, when you finish the high school, we are the Israelis, of course, before the Corona, we used to go to a very long trip abroad. I think because you speak about Sderot as a PTSD, I think Israel, most of the people in Israel, unfortunately, they suffer from PTSD, because when you when you serve in the army, women and men, and you see views that you don't see actually like a normal child in your country, probably. So I think that most of us are in a PTSD, and most of them just go abroad and travel abroad, and they go back and like start to study. And as I told you, I start to study in the IDC when I met Hila, and I received, of course, a full scholarship because I didn't have the money to study there. and I can focus in my of course my studies. But even during my studies, I did not abandon my social dream, and I graduate with honor from the IDC. But I was also, as Ila told you, a chairwoman in the IDC. I can tell you that this is the first time that I don't know if you know that, Ila, but if you remember that this is the first time that was a woman after 10 years of men. So I did also gender, uh, some gender view to my life, because before I was elected to be a chairwoman of the IDC Student Union, it was also about social. But when I understand that it's also about women, I think I understand that something need to change in Israel society, not just fixing the gap or between poor and poor and rich, but also think about the feminist view and think about women rights. I think how to promote women in Israel, but we will talk it, don't worry. In 2005, during my internship, it was the beginning of the reality show in Israel and of course abroad all over the world. And there was a reality show in Israel that called Leader Wanted. So Hila, when she told you about my CV, she told you that I finished, of course, my graduate from the IDC. And then I opened the youth center risk, but she didn't tell you the bridge that bring me from being a lawyer and get my diploma and understand that this is not what I want to do in my life. And I want also to put a spotlight on that, because when I was a child, I was dreaming about being a lawyer. That was my dream. Actually, I was like going in my house, of course, my mom's house, and just telling my mom objection, sustain, member of the jury. Like actually, I thought that in Israel there's a jury. And this was my dream. But during working in the law firm, I understand that this is not my vision in life. Although if I want to be a lawyer and protect all the poor people, but it's not actually what I want to do, because I want to deal and I want to understand the gap in Israel between the poor and the rich young people in Israel. So I did a really big U-turn in my life. Joined this reality show about Leader Wanted. Won the reality show, and why do I point it? Because when I was winning this TV show, I got not to of course not to my bank account, completely not, but I got 5 million shekel, like $1 million American dollar, to put or invest in a program to narrow the gap. And now, Hila, you know how, you probably know, but when you mention in my CV, when I finished the law school and when I finished and I got the diploma and I'm a lawyer, I did this U-turn, succeed in this program, and take the money. Of course, I never got the money, just give it to the Netanya municipality so I can start fulfilling my social dream. So I decided to go back to Netanya where I grew up. My mom still lived there, and also my sister, but different neighborhood. And I set up a center for youth at risk. I wanted to go back to the neighborhood where I grew up and give chances for those who didn't get it. So I set up a place from scratch. Like I chose the color of the walls, but also chose the children that I want to put in my centers and who I want to help them and who actually need my help, so we can help him to narrow the gap that he has in his high school. And I actually built a home. They didn't sleep there, of course, but they came every day after school, eat their lunch, did their homework, and of course participate in many activities, sport activities, as Ilah said, but also activities about Zionism, about Israel, about the army. Why do I need to go to the army? Why do I need to be a good civilian in Israel, a good citizen? And just educate them to think different from what they used to think. And I gave them a home that they have a chance to succeed in their life, and to educate them to think different, to understand that school is important, and going to school and having and finish high school, it's the first step to succeed in Israel society. And there was a lot of job to do there. And for 10 years, I was fulfilling my dream. I had good days, of course. When you succeed with youth at risk, it's a very good day, but I also had a very bad days. But I felt that this is what I want to do in my life. And I think that hundreds of young people went through these centers. In 2006, I opened in Netanya. In 2008, I opened another center in Herzliya. Still, Herzliya still work. Unfortunately, last year we closed Netanya after 13 years. It was a very long time, but the Netanya municipality decided. Doesn't matter now, but I can tell you that in Herzliya it's amazing and many young people. And I didn't mention it, but when I opened my centers, I opened them only for boys, and now there are also girls in these places. Now, I think after 10 years, I understand that I I don't know, in Israel, when you do something and you feel that it's, I don't know if in English it sounds the same, but when you feel that it's a little bit small for you, you know, Willa, is it going also in South Africa? So I think it was amazing, but I understand that I need to do something bigger. And if I can influence of 100, I want to influence of 1,000, because I can do it. I know I can do it. And I think I understand that I need to separate but it just doing more and more in Israel society. So in 2008, during, of course, my work in the centers, I joined a list that ran for the municipality election in Tel Aviv, Jaffa. I live here for the last 20 years in Tel Aviv. I left Netanya, and I joined this list. It's called in Hebrew Rova Ir, in English the majority of the city, because we were the young people and we just came to Tel Aviv, and we were many people, but we didn't have any representation in the city municipality. So in 2008, I ran for the first time in my life to the city municipality, just because of the thought that I want to do something greater here in Tel Aviv. I didn't succeed. I was number 4, and we got only 3 seats. So I stayed behind, but still was part of my dream. I never give up, and I knew that, okay, I will run in the next time. And of course, in 2013, I make the story short, I ran again. We got 4 seats, and I joined the city municipality of Tel Aviv. And as Ilah told you, I took the project of youth at risk in Tel Aviv. In Tel Aviv, so you probably went to Tel Aviv and you probably saw Tel Aviv, but when you see Tel Aviv and you visit Tel Aviv, you probably see the, the beaches and the restaurant and how amazing it's amazing city. But Tel Aviv has a very large backyard. And because it's a metropolitan city, all the young people from all over the country come to Tel Aviv when they run from home. So Ron Huldai, Ron Huldai probably when you come to Tel Aviv, said that we are the social worker of all Israel. And I think it's right, but this is why I understand that we need to give them a solution to those young people and run from their houses, or these young people who have this gap. And I started some program in Tel Aviv, still working of Narrow the Gap, but very, very quick. I understand that this one also too small for me and I want to do something big. And in 2015, I got the opportunity for Moshe Kahlon, was the Minister of Finance in 2015. He's built a list for the Knesset that called Kulanu Party, and I joined him. And in 2015, I was elected to Israel Parliament, to the Knesset. If you ask me if it was a very exciting, I came with a plan. I came with a plan to work with young people in Israel. And I think most of it was how to do it. To make a story short, I was a member of 7 committees in the Knesset. Of course, welfare and education was my two greatest, but I was in the women affairs and I was in security and foreign affairs issue. I had many other committees, but I want to focus again in education and welfare because this is what bring me to the Knesset. I decided, I see that can you talk about the gaps between, so I will talk about later. Just want to tell you about the Knesset. 4 years in the Knesset, I did a revolution in the situation of unprivileged youth or youth at risk. Now I know that it's very big word revolution, but I see it completely as a mission of my life. I build hostels in Israel, actually build them. You remember Netanya? So in Israel, in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, in Jerusalem, we actually build centers for youth that doesn't have home in Israel, so we can be part of it. The problem in Israel that they think that in 18, all the problem just disappeared, but I don't. In a country, the problem went just going bigger. And when I came to the Knesset, young homeless that he came 18, if he doesn't go to the army, he just go to the street. So I built hostels especially for young people from 18 to 26, so they can have home. And I had, of course, many programs for single mom because I came from a single mom house. So I did, in Israel, there's a sentence that says, if you want someone to succeed, don't give him just the money. Give him the tools that he can succeed. So we went and did amazing job for single moms so they can go to work, put the baby in the daycare, as you probably know very well, and still go to work and give an example to her children that she can succeed. And every place that I saw that need my help, I was there. Fortunately, I had the very good Minister of Finance that he knows very well about poverty because he also came from a very poor and challenging neighborhood. So every time when I came to Kahlon and tell him, please give me the money, so he helped me. And I think millions of shekel just going to welfare, not only all the time, see you as a donors that help us, but also understand that the state have a great responsibility to change her young unprivileged young people, because we need to be there and we need to be there for them. And just for closing, because I want to ask you to answer your question, in 2019, after 4 years, I didn't. I went against, of course, with campaign, but I didn't had the opportunity to go back to the Knesset. We were 10 seats and we lost them, and we just get only 4 seats, and I was number 6, so I went home. Did amazing job. So of course, when I was back home, I was volunteering, teaching young students about politics. Did a lot of programs with women's and everything that I can help. But still, I need to, of course, to work. And after 2 years, in 2021, I went to Yair Lapid. He was a very close friend of mine. We still in touch, of course. We were in touch during my 2 years back home, and I asked him if I can join him in his party, and he, of course, as you probably understand, of course, agree. And in 2021, just 2 months ago, I was elected. Months and a half, I was elected again to the Israel Knesset. And as you probably know, we have a very important week this week. I'm more optimistic. I think that we can build a government. But of course, it's 50-50, even less, 60-40, you probably know. But I know that I came back to the Knesset because I have mission and I have program and I have plans that I didn't finish. And when I was teaching my student, I teach in the IDC, I told them, and this will be my last sentence, that when you come to the Knesset, don't come young and idealist. It's nice, but when you want to do change in the Israeli society, first change in your background, back home, back in your neighborhood, back in your city. And after, when you understand that you did the really good change, go to the Knesset and do the change for all the Israeli society. But when you have this bag of tools, and of course, still being an idealist is very important, but you have to do something before you come to the Knesset, because when you will come to the Knesset, you can do it very quickly, and you will have very good and great influence. And I have many other stories, but I want to stop here because I want to give you some opportunity to ask. And of course, I want to answer the question that you asked here. So the first question is, can you talk about the gaps between Jews and Arabs and how to promote better international relations? So of course, I had a lot of work in this issue also when I was in the Knesset. Completely, the 20% Arab people in Israel, most of them need the help of Israeli society when entering the university or doing the exams. And I did many things with the Arab people, but if I want to put some thing that I actually did. So first, in the education committee, we changed the rules of entering to the university for Arabs, because if this is not the language, the Hebrew, so how do we help them to narrow the gap and to do the exam so they can enter university like other students? And of course, in university, they're doing the same because they need to work with the same, with the other student. I went a lot to the Bedouin in the south, help with communication, even with transportation. How do you help them to go to school at time if she's living in a very far village and the high school is very far? Sometimes they were. I saw children that was walking like 1 hour to school. It's like we are living in a third state. So fixing and give them the opportunity to go to a very good high school. I completely if you ask me what the big gap, if you want to close it, I completely think that it's about education. Because education and a very good, as I was, and I saw my mom and I saw my people in my neighborhood, and I see people in the villages. If you want a narrow gap in Israel, first start with education. Second, of course, there's the army, but it's not about Muslim, but Jews go to the army. So they will have the same opportunity as a Jew that finished the army. Same opportunity because they serve the army like us. And of course, as a Muslim, a Jews and Christian and all other people that live in the academia, that give them the opportunity to study in the academia, finish their degree, so they can have very good jobs. And if I want to put some words about women, you know that the ultra-Orthodox, that you didn't ask me that, but I want to remind you that most of the women that came from the ultra-Orthodox community, they are working, and they are the ones that give the money for the family. And this is thing that happened only in the last 10 years, understanding that you need two salaries now. So if I will push her to the academia and I will push her a very good job, she can get a lot of money. And good money is good education to her children. And slowly we can narrow the gap. Of course, there's a lot of things to do, but still, when we see the education and work, and how do you see the Israel society as a melting pot, not just the army, you can understand that you can give opportunity to the one that didn't get it. And of course, many centers like my centers and other places, and there's a lot, you probably know, so many volunteering in Israel, so many organizations that help the government to narrow the gap. I just came from from an organization that they give a scholarship to students, and just went to their finish. They had the finish party, and I went there. So there's many other organizations, not just the government, also that give helps to the Arabs population in Israel, not the Jewish one. And why did you only have your first shelter? So why it's only boys? Or okay, so when I decided to open the centers, I went to schools, and I checked them for almost 6 months, because, as I told you, I was a lawyer. I didn't come for the education field. And when I understanding the situation in high school, I understand that almost 80% with the one that make most of the problem in high school were boys. Most of the girls was in a very different situation from the boys. I saw many drugs, alcohol, many other problems, sometimes even boys that use sexual behavior. And when I was talking with the teachers and the other people that were like the education people in high school, not just the teacher, but the advisor and the one that surrounding them, I understand that we have a very big issue with the boys. And if you want to do the change, maybe you need to separate them. And I can tell you that even now, and even today, I went to visit one of my shelters that I built in Jerusalem, and it was a shelter for youth at risk. But the one that doesn't have any, the one that ran from their houses, and where I was visiting today a shelter that was for boys and girls. And today, after almost 2 years, they decided to separate, and there's boys and girls in two different shelters. And I had a very good conversation today about it, and they told me that the separation helped them. Of course, they speak with boys and they speak with girls, but the separation for those young people who run from their house, sometimes when they're with people like them, they behave different. So it was also with the boys. Hi, can you explain why you are so confident that you will be able? No, I completely not confident. I told you I'm 50-50, even 40-60, 60 that we lose. I'm sorry. I'm not so confident. We have many problems in Israel, in our coalition. We have the problem with the left wing and the right wing, and of course the major problem with Bennett, Shaked, and Yemina, that in one hand they want to have a right way government, but Netanyahu doesn't have the government because he didn't get enough seats in the parliament. So I'm not completely, of course, I think that we are in very problematic situation. I want to remind you, this is our fourth election in these last 2 years. It's crazy. I want to tell you that, and you probably heard my story about 4 years of government, how you can change Israel society, that you can form budget, that I was in 7 committees. We did amazing change in Israel society. I remember the night that we bought the budget for the people in Israel, and Kachlon was the Minister of Finance. And I remember that the MK, the member of Knesset from the opposition, they told Kachlon that it's amazing budget, but they, of course, they vote against because they are opposition, but it's amazing budget. So I remember it because I know that when you have government and you have functional Knesset, you can change people's life here. When now 2 years, everything's stuck. You can't do nothing to change the situation or help the people in Israel. And when he last speak about Hamas and the missile attacks and the living in Sderot and in the south and living always, the main problem that we had here is the problem with Arab and Jews inside the cities. People doesn't believe in the government, in the police. I don't know how do you act when you see a policeman. We have really big issues here. Of course, they are radical from the Jewish, from the Muslim, but still, we had here situation, but that never had before was in Israel. And when we can deal with Hamas, we can deal with Gaza. We have the best air force in the world, and we can do it. Of course, it's sometimes is sometimes it's completely, you don't understand them because we want to live in peace. We want to sit in a hospital. I don't want to run with my baby that she's 4 years old and run with her to the shelter because I have missile in Tel Aviv 2 o'clock at night. You can't imagine to yourself. It's crazy. But, we were living in a peace here. And this terror organization is still keep fighting of us. That, it's, of course it's crazy, but I'm most concerned from the situation with the Arabs because we need to live together. They are 20% of our population. Everyone that I know work with Arab. I work with Arab in the Knesset. I need always to think about what brings us together, how to narrow the gap between us, and not just how to think that everything is so disappointing in Israel. So first, as I told you, I'm not so confident. I hope because people here deserve some quiet from the government, and they deserve a Knesset, and they deserve, we have very, very strong people here, very strong people, children, but you need to bring them a strong government. And this is why I'm trying my best to do it now. I can tell you that it's very, very hard. And it's very hard time in Israel, not just because of the war, because the war inside us, this is the situation that I'm most afraid of it. And this is what I always try to fix. And this is the mission, and so that's why I came back after 2 years that I was resting with my baby. So now I need to come back. So I see that I answer all the questions. I just want to give you some one sentence just to finish. First, I'm sorry about my grammar. If I have some problem with past and future, you have to excuse me. You know, it's not my. I didn't born with this a language like you do, so you have to excuse me. And the second thing that I want to tell you that we don't have enough opportunity to tell you thank you about all that you are doing for us. Um, I think that you are doing an amazing job. And sometimes we are the people here are so busy with the survival, so we don't say enough thanks for you and for all your help to the Israel and to the Jewish state. I want to wish you a lot of health because this is what most important now here in Israel. I know that we are after that, so I can tell you that you will finish it. You know, the corona and the situation, and you will go to and live the normal life that we used to do. And as I promised to Ila, that I hope that one day I even come to meet you there.
We're all waiting for you, Merav.
I never been in South Africa. I just went to, to
We're
Namibia.
all waiting for you.
Yeah, I
Merav,
promise you that I will come. So just take care and be healthy, and you will finish the corona. Believe me, if we succeed, you will too. And thank you for listening, and thank you for having me in this very important night. Thank you.
Merav, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your inspiring talk. You are such an inspiration to us all. We have all learned so much from you, and thank you for everything that you do in Israel. I would just like to call Janine Kuri, our chairman, to say a few words. Thank you, Merav.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Hila. Merav, thank you so much for that talk. It was so informative. I'm absolutely blown away by your tenacity and just your innovative thinking and your drive and your courage. So thank you so much for adding that to Israeli society, because we obviously have values that are very much in common. The work that we do at WIZO, as you know, is very much centered around uplifting Israeli society as a whole. And just in terms of bridging that gap, the like-mindedness of the festival education, of seeing to the underprivileged, and specifically at-risk children, of course, being WIZO in Cape Town, our project essentially is Neve WIZO, which is 5 foster homes, safe homes for up to 40 children who often come in at the age of 3 and then leave once they're done with the army. So very much aligned there. Just to say to you, thank you so much for sharing with us your story and your trajectory. And like you say, you've probably got thousands and thousands of stories, and that's political career aside. So thank you. We would like to present you with the certificate. Tamara, I'm not sure if you can share the screen there. Just to acknowledge and thank you very much for speaking to us today. And in appreciation, we have made a generous donation to our emergency shelter in the name of Merav Ben Ari, with thanks and appreciation for sharing your valuable time and your inspirational and important story with us and our members at our Zoom event, the 26th of May, 2021. And that's with grateful thanks from myself and the executive of the North Zion WIZO in Cape Town. Merav, we wish you all the best with your political career and with any other projects that you are intending on, I'm sure, getting involved in future. And we'd love to hear from you again and to hear an update. Thank you for supporting the work that we do. And then just, if you wouldn't mind my taking the opportunity just to remind everybody of the current special appeal, this emergency appeal that we are currently calling for, just in terms of supporting our projects, which Hila explained are currently under immense strain. The banking details are in the chat on the side, and I'm sure that Tamara and Galia will put them back up on the screen as soon as we are done here. Thank you again, Merav.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Merav.
Bye.
Bye.